Welcome to Confluence, the podcast where hospitality, leadership, and mindset come together. Join your hosts, Santiago and Kristen, co-founders of The Columbian, a multi-cafe and roastery in Canada, as they delve into the transformative power of these three key elements on your business.
Confluence, where hospitality, leadership, and mindset come together. Beautiful. So today is episode 5. We are here in the studio with our podcast producer, Kristen Baldwin, and our dog, Fred, is also here. We're ready to go. We have a really cool topic today, a really powerful topic, in fact.
I'm fired up. I'm very excited to be here today. We just came back from Expo in Houston and met people in hospitality, met people in coffee, saw some mentors. So yeah, I'm super excited, and I think today's theme kind of like came out of us being there. And I'm very excited to talk about it.
Okay, so tell us, what is the title for today's podcast?
So the title, Accountability Unleashed, Why Leaders Must Own Everything.
So Accountability Unleashed, Why Leaders Must Own Everything. This is, I think, a topic that could absolutely change someone's entire business if they actually executed on some of the actionables that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I don't even think business. I think just like your life.
Life
in general, is life changing. I think when you really look at ownership and accountability, and you start seeing yourself as the person that's at fault for all the good things and all the bad things, there's a mind shift on how you behave, how you lead, how you live your life. Now, when it comes to business and hospitality, I think, like Jocko Willink says on his book, Extreme Ownership, you got to own it. And there isn't bad teams, there's just really bad leaders. And in my experience, it has been that a lot of business owners or a lot of people in leadership complain about their teams.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's one of the things that probably bothers me more than anything, like talking to anyone that owns a business.
Yep.
And it does happen, actually, unfortunately, quite often, where they'll be like, oh, great, here's another entrepreneur. I'm just going to unleash all of my complaints and dissatisfaction, with how my staff are performing. And then
it just turns into a complaining session.
It's awful.
And you don't really get anything out of that.
No.
And I think when you take a step back, and I've been there, and sometimes we get caught up in those things.
Yeah.
But I think when we have issues in our team, is because it's your fault.
Yeah.
And I think the smartest thing that as a business owner or as a human you can do is look within and really just take ownership of everything. The reality is in business and in life, we have lots of wins, but we have more failures than wins, and that's what keeps us driving and keep going every day. Ownership and accountability, it starts with the leader.
And I guess, for the people that are listening to this, we're talking about, okay, if you're going to take accountability and take ownership over your team, as a leader, I think it would be helpful for our listeners to actually maybe hear an example, a tangible example. How do you do that? How do you actually, as a leader in your business or in your life, what do you actually have to do to demonstrate that you are taking ownership and accountability over your actions?
I think it's just leading by example. I think these days a lot of people have that mentality of I cannot fail, I cannot make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think as a leader, if you drive the culture by example and you just do a lot of things, it seems like you're always winning, but the reality is you're making a lot of mistakes, you're learning a lot along the way. And if you drive that culture and you take that ownership of like those failures, you learn from them, and the team that is below you, that cascades down, and that really starts showing them that, hey, it is okay for me to make a mistake as long as I learn from it. And then it just creates a culture where you're always trying new things, you're always iterating like new things. It creates creativity. It creates a lot more buy-in from the teams, and it just drives the culture to the point where like you create super trusting teams, high performing, where it doesn't matter what the outcome is, you always have each other's back. And when you take that sort of ownership and you drive that into the culture, it's naturally for everybody to just become a high performer if they are in the right seat, and if they are a right fit for the company culture.
Absolutely. And I think, taking responsibility and taking ownership over something, like even if you were like the leader of whatever you're doing, it might be as simple as like, you know what, you make a mistake, and instead of like deflecting or blaming other people, that maybe you had people supporting you on a project, but you were owning that project, it was yours. If something fails, something that would actually destroy your culture and break trust would be, as the leader, as the person that has ownership over that project that failed, that you would blame other people and that you would deflect or you would make excuses. All of those things will really cause damage within your team and really won't put you in the best kind of light as a leader. It honestly could be as simple as being like, you know what, you guys, this was my project. I was leading this. I own it. This was my mistake. It didn't work. You guys were here. I acknowledge and I can see how I failed in X, Y, and Z. And, I apologize that this happened. You know what? Let's rally and let's like try again. And that goes a heck of a lot farther than trying to like blame people. It's
priceless.
Yeah.
Like I've done it in the past where I make excuses and then the team are like, you're just BSing around. And I also experienced that when I said, you know what? That's my fault. And the sense of respect that you get from employees when they actually realize that you also fail and that you also feel the pressure and that you also feel stress, it buys you a lot more respect, a lot more empathy, and it puts you from this pedestal where sometimes like employees put like the leadership or this thing where it's like, oh, like you're just higher than me. But when you actually take ownership of mistakes, you don't make excuses, and it puts you back at the same level, but not at the same level of like, we're just the same. It's more like the same level where you're human, where they see you just struggling just like they are and trying to lead the charge in a much more positive way. And it's a really good place to be because, again, it just creates such a high-performing team. So, yeah, I think, like, making excuses, to me these days, is a red flag. It's really funny because we I don't know if some of the listeners know, but we actually implemented EOS, which is a entrepreneur operating system in our company like 2 years ago. And we were just having an L10 this past week, actually a couple days ago. And one of the issues that we were IDSing, I think when I came out and said, you know what, when people make excuses, it is a red flag. And we should always let people know where they stand if they make excuses. Because if somebody makes excuses, it means that they don't care enough to actually be accountable for that. And that's how you lead, that's how you manage, and that's how you create accountability. Yeah. When you drive that culture of, it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay to not get it right, but it's much worse if you don't take accountability for it.
Absolutely.
Whether it wins or whether it's a fail. If you don't stand there and say, hey, it was me, I made a mistake, that is worse than not getting it done or failing at it. So I think ownership is the biggest thing. And then that's where I find in our leadership team, like we have such a cool group of people that everybody is so high performing and so competitive, but when it comes to like getting things done, like we are vulnerable and we're able to have those conversations. So it's very cool to be able to have a team that performs like that.
Oh, there's no question. And I find, you know, when you actually do take that ownership over like a failure, it also creates this really positive, like kind of more communicative environment, and you can actually diffuse situations. So if you are someone who might find yourself in kind of adversarial situations, like whether it's at work or in your business where there's like conflict, I want to say that probably a lot of that conflict could be avoided or diffused by people actually just taking ownership. As soon as someone starts to like deflect because they don't want to, because like their ego is getting in the way, it just creates like this very like conflictive environment. And then you're just creating like this head-butting environment.
Would you say that when you take ownership, it removes the personal aspect out of it?
Yeah.
And it just makes it into like something that can be much more easily fixed, and you buy more empathy from the other person?
Yes. And when you actually take that ownership, it's like you're acknowledging that something didn't go right. And at the same time, you are willing, and you have to show that you're willing to like actually make it right, to try something new, to try something different. As soon as you try to deflect by making excuses, it's almost as the same as saying, you know what? Not my problem.
I don't care.
I don't care. I don't want to fix this. I haven't done anything wrong. And then you're literally not going to get anywhere. So with a team, you have to be demonstrating these qualities like from like the top, because if you want a team that 100%. Is actually going to perform like this, that is actually going to take ownership, that extreme ownership, if we use like the name of the book by Jocko Willink, you have to demonstrate that as a leader. You cannot expect your team to do that. Leading by example is the most powerful way to do that.
Yes.
And being vulnerable, it's very vulnerable to take ownership over things, especially if it is something like a failure. Like it can be a hard hit to your ego. But if you're actually demonstrating as a leader that you are willing to put your ego aside and just kind of put the team first, or put like the company first, that is absolutely huge. And that's what's going to create a lot of movement, a lot of positive movement in your business.
Yeah, no, in preparation today, I was like reading a couple things, and I think the thing that stuck with me, and also from another book that I read recently, and I think I've used it a few times, where everything that happens in your life or everything that happens in your business is your fault. Yeah. So that is very powerful, because that changes the mindset. But then the other thing that I was reading today is losing and winning starts with the leadership. And when you see companies fail, or at least the way that I look at it now is like when a company fail, I don't think of them as a bad company. I think of them as a company that maybe did not have well-equipped leaders, because the reality today is that we don't have schools teaching us how to be good leaders. They're just teaching us how to be followers. And it is people like us that are entrepreneurs, risk takers, that want to create a different culture within our companies, that we find ourselves like trying to do like self-improvement and research how to lead people in better ways, rather than just like turning cranks. Because if you want to be a crank turner, go to university, go just be a follower. But if you want to be a leader in whatever industry that you want to do, then you don't even need to all that schooling. You just need to really develop your emotional intelligence so that you can actually communicate with people, because 99% of the issues that we have in business is all related to people.
Yeah.
And the other 1% I would say is systems.
Yeah.
But and if those systems fails, because maybe people didn't put enough thought about how to make them work well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, what do you think? Like, what else could we tell them in terms of like leadership and having that ownership to foster that culture of it is my fault in somebody's company?
So something that comes to mind immediately when we're coming to like this topic that we're discussing about taking ownership, and that ego piece where it can actually, when you look at human nature, I think that it actually can be maybe like a protective mechanism for people just to like immediately go on like the defense, to like protect themselves, to defend themselves.
Yes.
And you know what? That's okay. I mean, I personally have been working on that in massive ways. My go-to has always been to kind of go on the defense. But what I have done through a lot of self-development is actually learning how to take that ego piece out, and that piece where you're taking it personally. And I am not perfect at it. It's something that I actually work on it.
You're human.
I work on it every day.
It's an ever so evolving thing.
It's ever evolving. But I think if someone is really interested in having the kind of culture that we've been talking about, like in our podcast, you absolutely have to be willing to do some very deep and difficult personal development work.
Yes.
Because the work that I've done personally, which I'll just being really vulnerable and transparent, it has involved like a lot of like self-study, reading a lot of books, trying to find mentorship, doing actual therapy.
A lot of healing of yourself from childhood trauma.
Childhood traumas. Yeah. I have spent quite a significant amount of time investing in that. And I will tell you that those feelings that come upon you, like if someone is like, hey, what happened? If you ever feel that feeling that comes over you, if you're being put in that position where like, okay, you actually did mess up, this actually was on you, you might feel something that almost feels like a whoosh that comes over you. If you feel that feeling, and for anyone listening, you probably, if you've had the feeling of the whoosh, I don't even think I need to explain it further. It's something that comes over you where it's like you immediately want to defend yourself. If you do the self-development to actually be able to recognize when that happens, that's typically going to be a part of yourself that is maybe like an unhealed part of yourself from like childhood, as for example. And I'm not an expert in psychology, but just explaining it very briefly, if you actually do that personal development, then you are actually able to identify it. You know when it's happening, and you can actually learn specific strategies and skills in the very moment to be able to handle those feelings. And then your response will turn into a response rather than a reaction. I think what happens a lot is people don't take ownership because they are reacting to something.
Yes.
And usually when you react,
which is not even the issue. And this is something that I've learned as well. Language that you use when you're inquired about something.
Yes.
It takes me back to childhood. It's like when somebody asks you, why did you do it this way?
Yes.
Automatically, like, oh, I got to defend myself.
Yeah.
But when you actually ask, hey, what happened here? What measures or what did you do that this was the result?
Yes.
Then the response is like, well, I went through this and through that. And then they're like, oh, this is what the mistake was made.
Yes.
And then you can ask them, okay, what can we do so in the future this doesn't happen again? And they help you come up with their own solution, and that buys also that ownership, because it's this human psychology thing where if you ask why, I think it just takes us back to when we were kids, when our parents, why would you do this? Why didn't you do that? And then you're just like, oh, am I going to get the wooden spoon, or what's going on?
Yeah.
It's like that fight or flight response. And if we learn how to use language, and if we're very self-aware, so like that's where that emotional intelligence comes in.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to really invest money in that if you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting a business, because this will save you thousands of dollars in training, and lots of headaches, because guess what? The people are going to want to work for you. They're not. You're not going to have as much people leaving your organization, and you're going to be much more respected. You're not always going to be perfect, but if you at least invest in this and you become 30 to 50% better than the rest of your peers, you're way ahead of everybody else, because unfortunately, going back to that, we are not taught emotional intelligence when we are growing up.
No, it's something that I think most people, in my experience, most people have to have that desire, or something happens in their life where they're like, okay, I have to figure this out. But as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, when you're leading a team, if you're able to actually like develop that emotional intelligence through, you know, the various different ways that we've just discussed, you can recognize how to actually like handle those big feelings that come up that can often just be your ego. And then in turn, you're able to actually develop like strategies with language so that maybe people that maybe haven't had the opportunity to do a lot of work, if you actually can understand more of the language that will speak to people from a way that is not confrontational and isn't accusatory, you will be able to, as like an emotionally intelligent like adult, you'll be able to actually like ask questions and dig deeper, like, hey, why did this happen? Just like you mentioned, asking what instead of why. So you can really take on that very like wise adult kind of, I guess, role or aspect of yourself. And that can create a lot of,
trust.
I think, like trust within your team. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think so. We talked about like failures and learning from our mistakes when we take ownership, and that is really good.
Yeah.
But that what is even sweeter is when we take ownership of our mistakes and and we learn from those things. When we win and we celebrate it, everybody gets something from that ownership of winning and like the satisfaction, and everybody's like, yes, we did it. And that is very cool. Like to see your team thrive because you're winning together. Because even though there were some hardships, and I think that's the beauty of working hard, is like you go through some hard things together. Yeah. But when you see the outcome, it's like, man, that was all so worth it, and it's so much sweeter, and it makes you perform so much better in the next project or the next endeavor, the next thing that you're going to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, no, it was very cool. I think going to Expo was good. We hadn't been there in a couple of years. This year we had the booth.
Yeah, in Roasters Village.
It was great to have you there.
Yeah.
And like having some people that were mentors to us come and actually compliment what we do. I was like, oh man, like that's
pretty cool.
Sick.
It was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. So so super exciting. So I don't know. What else do you want to share with people when it comes to unleashing that extreme ownership or accountability in their company? Or if you had to give them just one thing to work on.
I mean, if we just maybe take away even like the piece of the company, like if taking away whether you're an entrepreneur or a business owner or an employee, just taking all of that away, if as a person, you can actually start to put into practice like that kind of like more extreme ownership, your life will open up, I think, in ways that you may not have expected. I'm talking like in personal relationships, like family relationships, friend relationships, work relationships. If you're actually willing to like put that ego aside and just really own every decision that you make, and follow through with it. So if it works, celebrate the heck out of it. Don't forget to celebrate. Celebrating is huge. If it doesn't work, acknowledge it to your team or to the people in your life, but not just acknowledge it, actually like take those steps to be like, hey, I effed up. This is what I'm going to do moving forward. I'm going to try something different or anything I can to fix this or make this right. And I think to have that follow up so that people know, I mean, you could just say words that, oh yeah, I messed up, but you have to demonstrate that you can, that the action that you can actually still follow through with that, if that makes sense.
I think it does. And I think what I would add to that is, it just makes you a better human, and it just creates trust in whichever environment, and it just shows that you're not a superhero. It shows that you're human, and it just allows people to see you for who you really are.
Yeah.
And being in leadership is hard. And in the journey that we embarked on is sometimes it's thankless, but a lot of the time it gives us great satisfaction when we're able to mentor people. And and I think when we take ownership of success and failure, it just creates a different mindset. It changes your mindset, and people can see that. People can feel it. So so that's what we got today. Very excited to share this with everybody, and thanks for putting this together today, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.